Welcome back to MHS, Midnight Horror Stories. I know many of you choose these videos to relax and easily drift off to sleep. Before you slip into your dreams, could you do me a small favor? Leave a quick interaction and let us know where you're watching this and at what time. Now, let's begin tonight's horror stories. I used to think a breakup was the end, but with Joe, it was just the beginning of something much scarier. It's been almost 3 years, and I still tremble whenever I remember that party. I can't sleep on quiet nights. The sound of the gunshot still echoes in my ears, and the screams still haunt me. In July of that year, I was invited to Jordan's graduation party. Jordan was our class president, and the party was at their house. I was pretty hesitant before accepting the invitation. I wasn't close to anyone in my class, worried that I wouldn't know what to say when I got there. But remembering my past relationship with my ex-boyfriend, Joe, I had lost so much freedom, so many relationships, and so much confidence. I had ended that control, and now it was time to get it all back. I arrived at the party, standing by the drink table, feeling a little awkward. Liz, right? I turned to see Jordan smiling. Jordan was tall and thin, with slightly curly brown hair and kind blue eyes. Hi, Jordan. Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad you came. You don't seem to go to parties very often. I nodded, unsure what to say. Jordan didn't ask further, just handed me a glass of orange juice. Do you want to go upstairs? It's a bit noisy down here. I hesitated a moment, then nodded. We went up to the second floor, into a small living room with a sofa and bookshelves packed with books. Jordan sat down, keeping a comfortable distance. We talked about college, about future plans. Jordan listened to me genuinely. I looked at Jordan, feeling my heart beat faster. There was something about them that made me feel safe. It was a feeling I had forgotten long ago. Liz, where are you? A shout from downstairs startled me. It was Joe's voice. My body froze, my hands began to tremble. Jordan looked at me with a bewildered expression. That's Joe, my ex-boyfriend I broke up with a few weeks ago. He's dangerous. Jordan placed a hand on my shoulder and squeezed gently. They told me to stay put, and then quickly went downstairs to handle the situation. But I couldn't sit still. I ran after Jordan. The noise and shouting from downstairs grew louder. When I reached the living room, I saw Joe there, his face flushed, his hands clenched. When he saw me, his eyes became wild. Jordan stepped forward, blocking him between me and Joe. You need to leave. This is my private home and you're not invited, Jordan said in a firm voice. But Joe completely ignored them, his eyes fixed only on me. Come home right now. I shook my head. Joe stepped closer, his face distorted with rage. The heavy smell of alcohol radiated from him. You belong to me. Jordan still stood between me and Joe, clearly showing a protective stance. Joe reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a shiny black handgun. My blood ran cold. Jordan flinched but still didn't move. Screams erupted from behind me. Everyone rushed out in a panic. Joe pointed the gun at Jordan. I lunged between them, but Jordan pushed me behind their back. They raised their hands, trying to calm Joe. We can talk. But Joe had lost all reason. He didn't let Jordan finish, and he suddenly pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed. Jordan fell. The bullet lodged in their right shoulder. Blood poured out nonstop. Jordan's face was pale with pain. I felt like I died for a few seconds, then quickly knelt beside Jordan, pressing hard on the wound to stop the bleeding. Joe seemed to go insane. He lunged, grabbed my hair tightly and pulled hard, ordering me to go with him. I struggled. Just then, the distant wail of police sirens filled the air. Someone had called the police. Joe looked around for an escape route, then ran. Paramedics rushed in. They bandaged Jordan's wound and got them into the ambulance. I followed closely. Joe was arrested by the police not long after, while trying to escape. At the hospital, surgeons removed the bullet from Jordan's shoulder. Luckily, the bullet didn't cause severe damage. I sat in the waiting room all night, staring at the white walls and feeling guilty. The trial took place a month later. Joe was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon and sentenced to 3 years in prison. But no sentence could erase the trauma and haunting memories. Jordan recovered. We still kept in touch, but there was a distance we both felt. I understand that true love never comes with control, possession, or violence. What Joe had for me wasn't love. It was an obsession with control. It took me too long to realize that. I'm still learning to live with those memories, but I know that silence only makes people like Joe more dangerous. So I decided to tell this story, hoping it will help someone else recognize the warning signs before it's too late. That graduation party ended, but the lessons from it will stay with me for the rest of my life. I can't go to parties anymore, not since that night. Every time I hear loud music or the laughter of a crowd, I see Jake lying on that gray sofa, his head resting against the backrest as if he were just sleeping soundly. But the truth is, Jake wasn't sleeping at all. My name is Maya, and this story happened years ago. It was Dylan's 26th birthday, my best friend from college. Dylan threw a pretty big party at his house in Dallas, Texas. There were about 30 people, with loud music, flashing lights, and the mingled smell of alcohol and cigarette smoke everywhere. I sat in a corner, just sipping my drink. I'm not a party person, but it was Dylan's birthday, so I still came. I probably would have left early if Jake hadn't shown up. Jake was my ex-boyfriend. We dated for a few months, but things ended badly. Jake was handsome, charming, and a bit of a player. I tried to break it off, but my feelings for him were so deep that I couldn't completely escape his influence. That night, Jake walked in with a hot girl. Their intimate gestures made it obvious she was his new girlfriend. I was even more surprised to learn that Jake and Dylan were high school friends. I watched Jake from a distance. He was laughing and talking with everyone, drinking, and seemed to be having a great time. His new girlfriend quickly blended into the party atmosphere too. I felt a strange emptiness inside. After a while, I saw him lying on the sofa near the corner of the room. He was leaning his head against the backrest, eyes closed. He must have had too much to drink. Perhaps because of lingering feelings from the past, I couldn't take my eyes off Jake. Jake lay there for a very long time. I kept thinking, is he okay? A restless feeling welled up in me. I wanted to go over and check on him, but I felt a little hesitant, especially with Jake's new girlfriend there. "Jake's totally wasted," I said to a friend standing near me. She laughed loudly. "Just let him sleep. It's not the first time he's done that." Some others also brushed it off. They said Jake always drank a lot and slept that soundly. Time passed and the party continued. I saw one guy who had too much to drink accidentally spill a whole can of beer on Jake's pants, but Jake still didn't move. The guy and his friends burst into laughter. "This dude's out cold." After that, I saw Jake's girlfriend sitting next to him taking selfies. She pouted, posed intimately, and took a few pictures. People around them laughed and commented on the photos. Around 2 a.m., the party started to wind down, and most people had left. One of Jake's friends wanted to wake him up to leave together, jokingly called out loudly, and pushed him hard. Jake fell to the floor with a loud thud. Everyone was startled, but because they were under the influence, people's reactions were quite slow. I frantically rushed over to check on Jake. I put my hand to his nose. There was no breath. "Call 911, I screamed, my voice trembling. Everyone suddenly sobered up. Someone called for an ambulance. Someone else tried to do CPR, but I knew it was too late. Jake's body was stiff and cold. The police and paramedics arrived. After a brief examination, they announced that Jake had been dead for at least 2 hours, probably since I first noticed something was off. The cause of death was determined to be a drug overdose combined with a brain hemorrhage. All of us who were left after the party were stunned. We had been partying, laughing, and taking selfies around a dead body for several hours without anyone knowing. We thought Jake was just deeply asleep, but he was actually dead. Jake's girlfriend sobbed uncontrollably when she learned the truth. She had kissed her boyfriend's cheek for a photo without knowing anything. She even posted those photos on social media. Dylan was also devastated, just sitting in a corner, his face in his hands. His birthday had turned into a tragedy. As for me, I felt more guilty than anyone. I had known something wasn't normal. I had watched him all night, but I didn't go near him because of the emotional baggage from the past. Maybe if I had pushed past those irrelevant feelings, Jake could have been saved. If I had been braver, maybe Jake wouldn't have died. But I didn't do anything. I let personal feelings cloud my judgment. A dead person lay there while we partied around him. Since then, I haven't been able to attend any parties. Every time I hear loud music, I see Jake lying on that sofa. Every time I see someone deeply asleep, I think of death. I live with that haunting memory to this day. Sometimes I wonder if that night I had just stood up, stepped out, and said something to defend him. Would things have been different? That evening was still a warm summer party. It's just that we didn't know the laughter that night would create tears and harm for a small family. Last summer, I received an invitation to Ben's housewarming party. He had just moved into a new neighborhood in Austin, Texas. To celebrate moving, Ben hosted a BBQ, inviting his close friends and colleagues. The party started at 6 p.m., the air filled with the smell of grilled meat under the sunset. About 20 people attended the party, their laughter echoing throughout the yard. At first, everything was great. We chatted, drank beer, and enjoyed delicious grilled steak. But as the party went on, everyone had quite a bit to drink and started losing control. Around 8 p.m., a thin man appeared at the back door. He was wearing wrinkled clothes, looked tired, and his hair was a bit messy. "Hi, I'm Sam. I live across the street. Could you guys please keep it down a bit? My daughter can't sleep," he said in a gentle voice. Everyone's eyes looked at Sam with annoyance. Someone whispered, "Grumpy old man." I couldn't help but feel annoyed too. I thought he was just a difficult neighbor trying to spoil our fun party. After Sam left, everyone continued drinking, and the noise level rose again. Some guests started making fun of Sam's appearance. "He looks like he just slept under a bridge," one of Ben's colleagues said and laughed. "Probably so poor he can't afford new clothes," another person chimed in. Around 9 p.m., Sam appeared for the second time. This time he looked more stressed. "I already asked you guys to lower your voices. My daughter really can't sleep." But instead of apologizing, a few drunk people started laughing loudly and openly mocking him. Sam stood there for a moment, his face red, then turned and walked away. I saw his hands trembling. 15 minutes later, Sam came back for the third time. "Party pooper," someone yelled and threw a cup towards Sam. Others started yelling and throwing trash towards Sam. Ben stepped forward and threatened him with a very rude finger point directly at his face. "This is my party. You're not welcome here. Get out." This time, I could feel genuine anger in his eyes. Sam clenched his fists so hard his body trembled, then quietly left. After Sam left, the party became even more chaotic. Everyone continued drinking, and some even deliberately threw trash over the fence into Sam's yard. I felt uncomfortable with these actions, but didn't intervene. Then the worst thing happened. Rick, a mutual friend of mine and Ben's, had too much to drink. He insisted on driving home, even though everyone tried to stop him. Rick stumbled out to his car, started the engine, and instead of backing out into the street, he floored the gas pedal. The car sped forward, crashed through the fence, drove across Sam's yard, and ran over a few things before stopping. When we ran out to see, I saw a pink child's bicycle completely crushed under the car's wheels. Some people were shocked by the incident, while others, due to their drunkenness, became excited and laughed at Rick's actions. Sam's front door opened, and a little girl ran out, looked at the bicycle, and burst into uncontrollable tears. The air around us fell silent. All eyes turned towards the little girl. Sam appeared right after. His face was terribly distorted. "This was my daughter's birthday present. I worked extra hours to buy it," Sam said in an angry voice. Rick, instead of apologizing, sneered, "Then just buy a new one." That was the last straw. Sam suddenly screamed and lunged at Rick. He punched Rick repeatedly in the face, while screaming words that were indistinguishable. It took 3 men to pull Sam off before Rick could escape. He lay unconscious in the yard, blood all over his face. The police arrived after 15 minutes. They arrested Sam and took Rick to the hospital. While waiting, I overheard a conversation between the police and other neighbors. Sam was a single father, working 2 jobs, a day shift at an auto repair shop and a night shift at a warehouse. He dedicated all his income to raising his 6-year-old daughter. The pink bicycle was a birthday gift he had just given his daughter, and she cherished it more than anything. When I heard this information, I suddenly sobered up. I remembered Sam's tired eyes, his wrinkled clothes because he had just gotten off work, his soft voice when he asked us to keep it down. Sam wasn't a weirdo. He was a worried and loving father to his daughter. Rick recovered after 2 weeks, but Sam had to face legal consequences for his violent actions. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail and had to do community service. I don't know what happened to his daughter during that time. I can't forget the little girl's cries that night. It was the cry of a child who had just lost something most precious, not due to an accident, but due to the cruelty and ignorance of adults. That was a lesson I learned about not judging others by their appearance and circumstances. I live in a small apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building in the outskirts of Los Angeles. The white painted walls have yellowed, and the carpet has a few cigarette burn marks left by previous tenants. The room is filled with the faint blue light from 3 computer screens. On the desk, there's a half-finished energy drink, a paper plate with some leftover BBQ sauce from the previous meal, and a pile of delivery receipts that haven't been thrown away. I don't like cooking. I don't have time for it either. My job as a programmer keeps me glued to the screen all day, and I have a passion for fast food. I have a round board hanging on the wall, a complete list of famous fast food chains. I pick my meals by throwing darts, just a small game to add some fun to my repetitive routine. The dart spins and lands on the board, Jack in the Box. I open the app and order a large meal, an ultimate cheeseburger, curly fries, chicken nuggets, and a large soda. About 20 minutes later, the doorbell rings. I drag my slippers over and open the door. Outside, there's a delivery person in a red and black uniform wearing the brand's iconic clown hat, a white shiny hat with a goofy smile and lifeless, round eyes. Fast, I think, taking the bag, closing the door, and returning to the computer screen. The smell of food wafts out as I open the burger box. I take the first bite. The meat is softer than usual, not the juicy tenderness of grilled beef. The texture isn't uniform. Some parts seem tougher. I frown, chewing slowly, trying to figure out if something is off. Maybe it's Jack in the Box's special recipe? I've never noticed this before. Or maybe this location prepares it differently from the others I've tried. But anyway, the taste is truly irresistible. Unlike before, this time I want to eat it again. The next day, I order the same meal, the same delivery person, the same white clown hat. He stands there, a little longer than usual after handing me the bag. I don't think much of it, just close the door and continue my workday. That night, while I'm playing a game, I hear a knock at the door. I check the clock. It's nearly midnight. I didn't order any more food. I step out and look through the peephole. The hallway is empty. I frown, thinking maybe someone got the apartment wrong. But as I turn to go back inside, I hear a soft laugh from the hallway, a deep, distorted laugh, as if muffled by a mask. And when I look through the peephole again, the white clown hat is right there. I quickly turn on all the lights in the apartment, the soft yellow light filling the room, pushing back the lurking darkness outside. I hold my breath, waiting. But when I look through the peephole again, no one is in the hallway. I shake my head, telling myself I must be seeing things, too tired after a long day in front of the computer screen. Or maybe it's just a prank. I try to forget about it, return to my desk, but I can't concentrate anymore. All my senses are on edge. Finally, I decide to go to bed. The next morning, I switch to ordering food from a different brand. I tell myself I need a change of taste to forget the unsettling feeling from the night before. But no matter how hard I try, the taste of Jack in the Box lingers in my mind. I feel something's missing. The flavor of the burger in my hand no longer satisfies me. The fries are soggy. The chicken nuggets are dry. I try to eat but feel disgusted. Nothing can fill that craving. Eventually, I give in. I open the app and order an ultimate cheeseburger from Jack in the Box. When I take the first bite, a strange wave of pleasure rushes through my body. It's as if all my cravings, all the turmoil inside me disappear instantly. I devour it hungrily, and when I glance at the dark screen of the computer, a figure is reflected right behind me, a white clown hat. I immediately turn around, and on the table is the bag of food with the clown logo. I chew slowly, with vague doubts swirling in my mind. Since that day, I've been ordering food from Jack in the Box every single day, unable to do anything until I've eaten it first. Work is falling behind. The computer screen is covered with delivery receipts. Burger boxes are scattered everywhere. Every night, Jack's image appears more and more. At first, it was just a fleeting figure in the hallway. But then, I saw him standing right outside my apartment window, even though I live on the 3rd floor. I saw him in the bathroom mirror, his smile unnaturally stretched. One night, I decided to resist it. The craving surged to the point of actual pain. I trembled, sweat pouring from me as if I were bathing, my stomach tightening as though someone were twisting it from the inside. I tried to endure it, but the craving grew more and more frantic. I screamed, smashing everything in the apartment. The computer fell to the floor, the screen shattered. I ripped open pillowcases, throwing everything within reach. I even hurt myself with hard punches, trying to soothe the addiction tormenting me. I clenched my teeth, trying to swallow my saliva, but it didn't help. A metallic taste fills my mouth. I realize I've just bitten my tongue, but I don't stop. I chew it, as if desperately searching for the familiar feeling of a burger. And then, there's a knock at the door. 3 strong, patient knocks. My body freezes, and I sluggishly walk to the door, my trembling hand reaching for the doorknob. When I open the door, Jack is standing there. He's no longer a shadow in the hallway. He's standing right in front of me, under the flickering hallway light, holding a tray of food from Jack in the Box. Without saying a word, he hands me the tray of food. I couldn't resist, quickly grabbing it and devouring it like a starving person. Jack stood silently, watching me eat. When I reached the last bite, his laughter suddenly rang out. It was no longer the cheerful laughter from the commercial, but cold, distorted, and eerie. He tilted his head, his round, lifeless eyes boring into me. "Can you believe it?" he chuckled. "You're eating the last of him." I froze, eyes wide, trembling as I reached into my mouth and pulled something out from between the bread and melted cheese, a human finger. I threw up, fear tightening in my stomach. I looked back, but Jack was gone. Only the white clown hat lay on the floor, covered in grease and dried blood. For the next 2 years, I lived in a psychiatric facility. Whenever I try to swallow a bite of food, I remember the feeling of a human finger in my mouth. Feel the soft skin, hard cartilage, and raw flesh being crushed in your teeth. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. My body deteriorated severely. The identity of the person I consumed was a young man who worked as a fast food delivery driver. The murderer had taken his phone to receive orders and added special ingredients along with a deadly addictive drug. But the worst part wasn't the obsession with food. It was that he still hadn't been caught. The twisted murderer was still out there. The police couldn't identify him. And every time night fell, I still hear the knocking on the door. I'm a freelance programmer, and I work online. One day I was scrolling through Facebook to chill after a few hours of work, and I stumbled on a post from some anonymous account. "I just killed someone. What should I do now?" It's a super short sentence, but it got a ton of reactions, including mine. I totally cracked up when I saw the post, and after checking out the comments, I realized the author really knows how to make an impact. I dropped a comment to get in on the joke. "Go grab a knife, like a really sharp good one." A bunch of people laughed at my comment. "How cool," I said to myself and got back to work. That evening, I was in bed, messing around on my phone, when I got a notification saying someone replied to my comment. The OP replied to my comment. "I got a knife like you said. What now?" I shot back. "Break it down like those Hannibal horror movies." "And then, what do you do with them?" "Just wait for the garbage truck to roll up. Or maybe enjoy it." I cracked up at my own comment. Everyone thought the man was just kidding. After that, I have no idea when I knocked out. The next day, I hung out with friends and didn't get back until late afternoon. Thinking about yesterday's post, I was curious and went to check it out. The author confirmed he wasn't joking. "I did what you said, and the results blew my mind." I suddenly got a shiver. My mind flashed to a scary image of a dismembered body, and I realized I was basically consulting on how to pull off that crime. I closed the social media app, fired up my favorite music, and hopped in the shower. But it felt super weird. I didn't even know what I was feeling at that moment. My body was just really anxious and restless. I couldn't shake off that article, so I logged back in right after I finished showering. If you don't believe it, just check out the foot of the Mackinac Bridge. A black bag's gonna be there at 10 p.m. tonight. He also dropped a link to a map showing how to get to the Mackinac Bridge below the post. A lot of people were still laughing at that post, but I was kind of half believing it. The bridge was less than a mile from my place. I had been mentally struggling for like 4 hours. My mind was getting torn apart by curiosity, doubt, and fear. In the end, curiosity won out. I got up, changed my clothes, and bounced out of the house. When I got to the foot of the Mackinac Bridge, my heart started racing. I looked around, and sure enough, I spotted a black bag in the distance. The closer I got, the harder it was to breathe. But right then, my sense kicked in. My feet kept moving, even though fear was tightening up my chest. I reached out to open the black bag, and I started gasping. The thing inside started to show, but it was black and hard to make out. Something fell out from inside, and I jumped back, screaming like crazy. "A piece of plastic," I shouted when I finally saw what it was. Inside the black bag was a bunch of scraps. I kicked the piece of plastic hard and turned to leave, feeling kinda ashamed and a bit bitter for letting some random person pull me along like that. When I got home, I quickly pulled up the article, ready to call out that scammer. But the article was gone. I muttered some curse words and went to bed feeling frustrated. A few days later, while I was browsing online, the anonymous account dropped a post. What to do with such a tall and fit body? This time, there was a video with the article. That was me, standing at the foot of the Mackinac Bridge that evening when I opened the black bag. So there was a camera in that bag. I reported it to the police right away, and while I was waiting for the investigation results, I ended up dropping almost 8 pounds. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep well, and couldn't concentrate on work. I had no idea what the account owner was going to pull next on me,
or someone else. I wasn't sure if this was just a joke or if it was some crazy scheme. If it was just a prank, like that black bag at the foot of the bridge, then this jerk really knows how to freak people out.
I am Maddie, 32 years old, and I live near my family in Houston. I'm not the type of person who gets paranoid easily, but after what happened, I can't step into a grocery store without checking my surroundings at least 3 times. It happened last year when I took my twin niece and nephew, Heather and Merlin, just 3 years old, to Costco. My sister had work to do, so I agreed to watch them for the afternoon. I wasn't a mother, but I thought, this should be easy. They're just 2 adorable kids. I can handle this. I was wrong. Taking 2 3-year-olds into a supermarket is like trying to control a pair of hyperactive kittens. I strapped them into the double shopping cart, trying to keep things under control as I navigated the aisles. The kids chattered away, pointing at everything, while I focused on getting in and out as quickly as possible. And then, I noticed her. A middle-aged woman with curly blonde hair, wearing a long beige coat. She stood at the end of the aisle, staring at me and the kids. At first, I assumed she was just absent-mindedly looking in our direction, but when I moved to the next aisle, she was there again, still standing, still watching. That's when I started to feel uneasy. I tried to ignore her and continued shopping, but a few minutes later, as I turned to grab a carton of milk, she was suddenly right behind me. She smiled. They're adorable. I forced a polite smile. Thank you. Then she tilted her head, staring at the kids with an intensity that made my skin crawl. They must be twins, right? I've always loved twins. Such beautiful children like little angels. I nodded, my only thought being, get out of here now. But then she asked a question that made me freeze. Where are their parents? Or are you watching them alone? I tried to keep my voice steady. They're with me today. I'm their aunt. Her smile widened, something unsettling in her expression. Oh, really? So no one else is with you? Every instinct in me screamed that something was very, very wrong. I immediately turned the cart around and said, Sorry, we have to go. And that's when I saw him. At the end of the aisle, a man leaned against a shopping cart. He wore a black hoodie with the hood pulled low over his face. He was pretending to look at his phone, but his eyes never left me. I had no doubt now. This was a setup. I gripped the cart handle tightly, forcing myself to stay calm. Don't run. Don't panic. Stay in control. I pretended not to notice him, instead smiling at the kids and speaking loud enough for those nearby to hear. All right, kids, let's go find Mommy. I turned the cart and walked straight to the checkout area, where there were more employees and other shoppers. I didn't look back, but I could feel it. The woman and the man were still watching me. At the register, I kept my voice natural but firm. Excuse me, could you call security? I think someone is following me and these children. The cashier's expression changed immediately. Within a minute, a security guard arrived. I quickly explained what had happened, and he nodded, saying he'd check it out. I waited near the exit, my heart pounding, gripping the shopping cart tightly. The woman was nowhere in sight. The man had disappeared too. A few moments later, the security guard returned, his face tense. You were right. We checked the security cameras. She followed you from the moment you entered the store, and so did that man. The second I started heading toward them, they both left. I immediately called my sister, telling her to come pick up the kids and swearing I would never take them out alone again. That night, I did some research and found something I will never forget. Human traffickers often target women who are alone with children. They watch, looking for someone distracted, especially with young kids. They wait for a moment of vulnerability, and in just a few seconds, a child can be taken and disappear forever. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't noticed something was off. if I had been just a little slower. But I know one thing for sure. If you ever feel like someone is watching you or your child, don't ignore that feeling. I have never forgotten that night. The night I first truly felt fear. I was only 16 years old at the time, living with my parents in an old house a few miles outside of town. The house had an old-fashioned design with a sloping roof and stained glass windows. The wind would whistle through the cracks in the windows, bringing with it the smell of damp earth, making the place both cozy and eerie in its own way. We didn't own the house, but rented it through a middle-aged man, Mr. Dwight. Both my parents worked the night shift at the town hospital, my dad in the emergency room, and my mom as a nurse. They would leave the house late in the afternoon and not return until the next morning. So, I was used to being home alone, even though it could be a bit chilly and sometimes downright scary. That night, the sky outside was pitch black. I sat in the living room, the dim light from the lamp casting a soft yellow glow on the cracked walls. I was curled up on the couch, reading an old book, when I heard a noise. It sounded like someone walking on the gravel outside. At first, I thought it was the neighbors' pets. They often ran into my yard like that. But then I heard another sound. It was a light tap on the window. I sat up straight, my heart pounding. Through the dim light, I saw a shadow outside. His eyes sent a chill down my spine, slowly, as if peering right through the glass, looking straight into my mind. He pressed his hand against the window, as if trying to get a better look inside. I froze, not daring to move. After a moment, he started walking around the house, trying all the doors. The back door creaked as he grabbed the handle, then the side door, then the front door. Each movement was smooth and deliberate, as if he knew the house layout very well.
I know you're in there. Don't hide. I have a special gift for you,
he said in a flat, drawn-out voice. I snapped out of my fear-induced stupor and ran to lock all the doors, securing each lock as quickly as I could. My hands were shaking as I grabbed the key, trying to twist it fast before the man got any closer. I looked up and saw that he had returned to the living room window. His eyes were fixed on me through the glass, peered on his face under the dim light. I tried to stay calm and reached for the phone on the table. I texted my dad. Dad, there's a strange man. He's walking around the house. Please come home. I didn't call because I was afraid he might hear the ringtone or my voice. The house was so quiet that even the smallest sound could echo. When I sent the text, I heard the window shaking. He was trying to open it. I crawled off the couch, doing my best not to make any noise. I hid in the dark corner between the couch and the bookshelf, listening to my own breath. The wind outside still howled, but his footsteps and the sound of the door handles rattling as he tried to open them made my heart race. He was muttering something, but I couldn't make out the words. Time seemed to stretch on, as if every second lasted an eternity. Then suddenly, everything went silent. No more footsteps, no more tapping. I didn't dare leave my hiding spot. A little while later, I heard the sound of my dad's car pulling into the driveway. I ran outside, tears streaming down my face, and threw myself into my dad's arms. My dad looked around and saw a small brown box right in front of the front door. On top of it was a piece of paper with messy handwriting, a gift for my little girl. Inside the box was an old, worn doll with wide, unblinking eyes. My dad scanned the area, then noticed a pale pink envelope right by the door. My name was written on it in capital letters, along with a small heart symbol next to it. Inside the envelope were photos of me, watering plants in the garden, laughing while playing with the dogs, and even one of me sleeping in my own room. I felt my blood run cold when I saw the scribbled note on a small piece of paper. You look so beautiful when you're alone. The police arrived shortly after and began searching the house inside and out. The next morning, they discovered fingerprints on the living room window where the man had tried to open it. Additionally, security footage from a nearby house showed him lurking around the area that night. When the police investigated further, they found a hidden door in the basement, a door that my family had never known about. The door led to a secret room filled with strange objects, old film reels, antique cameras, and numerous photographs of women, including me. The police confirmed that part of the house's structure had been altered before it was rented out, serving a sick purpose. Mr. Dwight, the landlord, was immediately arrested. He quickly confessed to his crimes, but did so with a disturbing sense of pleasure. He also admitted that he hadn't just done this to my family. The house was his great design, a place where he had lured many victims before. Some girls had luckily escaped, but not all of them. That secret room was now part of the investigation into missing persons cases in the area. So it turned out that his friendly and eager demeanor, promoting the house as a safe, peaceful place for families, was all an act. He had even agreed to lower the rent, claiming it was to keep the house occupied and prevent damage. But all of those actions were not out of kindness. They were because he wanted easy access to my family, especially me. My family immediately packed up and moved to a place closer to town, with friendly neighbors and modern security systems. We sold most of our old belongings because we didn't want to take anything that had once belonged to that house. But even though we had moved, the haunting never left me. Sometimes, I dream of Mr. Dwight's eyes watching me from the basement window, staring at me unblinking. I always feel like someone is watching me, even when I know I'm in a much safer place.
I'm Rose, 26 years old. I'm having a rather happy life, getting married soon to my beloved fiancé and a stable job. I have a brother, 3 years my junior, Beavis. We had an unhappy childhood, separating from one another, with me going through foster homes, while Beavis was hospitalized in a psychiatric ward. 16 years ago, I had a happy family with my parents and my little brother. Thanks to our father's flourishing business, we lived in a large and cozy household. My mom was a wonderful woman. She was just perfect, and for the three of us, she's our world. Her lifelong passion was arts. She loved collecting the objects that carried with it some resemblance of antiquity. I remembered on my mother's birthday, my dad went home with a bundle of flowers and a carefully covered gift for such special occasion. It was rather large and wrapped in a luxurious silk canvas, requiring 2 people to carry, and it was an antique mirror stand. My mom was in love with that gift already. She was so ecstatic that she came over and repeatedly kissed my dad, despite our embarrassed look. It was then told this mirror stand was truly an antique of 200 years old. Dad must have spent a lot of time and money just to get it, and truly, he knew his woman well. The mirror stand was double my height and as wide as my shoulder width. My mom was really excited, and she left the mirror in the living room as a precious decoration. About my mom, she's not actively working. She dedicated her time for home caring. She always tried her best to maintain her beauty. One day, I saw my mom standing in front of the mirror, her hands wrapped around the C-section scar delivering us to the world. She must be very sad and thinking about ways to improve that scar. However, the moment I saw my mom in the mirror, she was completely different. Let out a wide smile, her features becoming borderline inhuman. Startled, I called out to my mom, and she immediately turned around. Suddenly, the reflection in the mirror turned back to normal. I stared down on both my mom and her reflection in the mirror. Maybe it's all just a trick of the eyes. In the evening, my parents told me and my brother to wait in the TV room until they worked something else. Me and Beavis happily agreed. We brought snacks to eat and enjoyed our TV. That was a lot of fun that we forgot the passing of time. Until suddenly, I heard some crackle echoed from somewhere. It was scary to think back, but I thought at the time it was just the TV playing.
When the show ended, my dad came back telling us to go to sleep. At night, the crackle I heard in the evening jolted me from my sleep. It stopped completely when I came back to my sense, so I had no idea whether it was a dream or not. The crackle came back with the mumbling from Beavis. I thought he's talking in his sleep. I let out a sigh of relief and immediately went back to sleep. In the evening, when my family was having a dinner, my mom prepared a great feast for the rest of us. Baked potatoes. My brother and I was asked about what happened at school. While I was pretty excited at my A grade in arts, Beavis was quite somber. Seeing his sunken mood, my parents asked what happened. Beavis stared at my dad and said that he saw a lady hugging him in his work office. My dad was stunned with his words, while my mom was really in shock. He put his hands on the boy's shoulders and asked him once again, looked deep in his eyes. "What kind of joke is that, Beavis?" My mom, in contrast, was furious at the mention of another woman, screaming at my dad. "You are a jerk. Kids don't lie, and you know it." After that, my dad dragged my mom for some serious talk, leaving us alone with a cold dinner. I turned over to Beavis, asking whether he's sure about what he saw. Beavis was sure, and went on to describe the lady he saw, with long waving hair and a white dress. The lady hugged my dad from behind while he's working. At the time, we didn't truly realize the scope of that, but we knew that for many days afterward, our family sunk deep in turmoil from my mom and dad constant arguments. My dad no longer slept at home anymore, but he now resided in the company. My mom, however, only dunked in alcohol and no longer cared for us like she used to. At dinner, it's always dried and blackened pieces of toast. She said that was the best she could do. Then it was her own dinner, a bottle of beer and an apple. I saw in her eyes nothing but tears and torment. Suddenly the light went off, and we were very frustrated. Normally it was my dad's role, yet dad wasn't there, so mom's gotta do it. After changing the light bulb, my mom smiled, then grabbed onto her half-eaten apple. The sound of broken glass echoed through the air, and when my mother turned around, we were shocked. In her hand was a broken light bulb, and within her mouth was blood and broken pieces of glass, covered in blood. My mom shakingly pulled out the broken glass pieces from her mouth, groaning in pain. Beavis was so scared that he cried out loud. I immediately pulled my mom to the bathroom for some first aid, and then went back on to console Beavis. That night, I hugged a sleeping Beavis at my side, fighting the churning empty stomach, while my mom would only stare at her mirror, motionless. Later in the morning, I called my dad and told him about what happened. He immediately returned, hugging us too and trying to make peace with Mom. After days of intense atmosphere, finally normalcy returned to us. In the weekends, I often went to my dad's workroom, where I had a large table for myself and could draw as much as I wanted with a bunch of colored crayons. That day, I noticed my dad with a plaster of Band-Aids on his finger, which he explained that it was an accident when dining with a customer. He said he's all right, and proceeded to remove the Band-Aids, due to it being very restrictive on typing over a keyboard. After some time, I asked my dad to bring some food in, and he said yes. When I came back with a snack bag, I dropped it on the floor, seeing my dad trying to pry out his entire fingernail from its socket. Successful at last, he brought up a bloodied fingernail still attached with flesh and blood and cheerily talked to me. "This is one tough Band-Aid, kiddo. Took me a while to get rid of it." When I screamed in terror and ran away, that was when my dad realized what he'd done. Another day, when my brother and I just came back from school, we stopped dead on our tracks after we heard loud yelling from my parents' heated arguments. We dared not venture any further. The scene of the previous fight still haunted me. Then there was my mom's blood-curdling scream, followed quickly by a loud gunshot.
quickly covering Beavis's ears. I could see my brother shaking uncontrollably, eyes sunken down and his little fist shivering up. My dad walked out of the door, blood covered his clothes. Seeing us huddled there, my dad stopped, then laughed out loud, completely ignored us on his way out. Making our way inside, I saw my mom lying on the floor, blood pooling from under her lifeless body. I tried my best to cover Beavis's eyes so he didn't see anything. He squeezed my hands tight too, then cried out loud in panic. The mirror in front of us showed the two of us directly on its gaze. We were so pathetic, broken, and shattered. Behind our reflections came a woman in a white dress, just like what Beavis had described. I didn't see her face clearly, nor turn back around. I could only hug Beavis tightly and cry. The giggle came back, as I had heard it many times before. In an instant, the once happy family I had was now in pieces. My father was imprisoned, diagnosed with some mental issues, and passed away 2 years after being incarcerated. Beavis was in some serious post-traumatic disorder and must undergo serious treatment since. I was shuffled between relatives and foster homes, and finally the orphanage for 8 long years. Those were the lowest points of my life. But now, things seem to look up again. I just picked up Beavis from the psychiatric ward. They said he's doing all right. In the charity auction my fiance's company ran, I spot something familiar. The highest bid, it turned out, was the mirror stand my family once had.
My name's Lewis, 27 years old. I graduated from University of California, Berkeley, majoring in museum collections and studies. A few months ago, I was transferred to work in the Smithsonian, one of the most well-known museums in the United States. Since I would be working in R&D here, I felt pretty excited about it. On my first day of work, I decided to have a walk around the museum, seeing the vast collection of it. I happened to come across Fiona, an employee who was the same age as mine, with 1 year experience. She also shared the same position as I was. We got to know each other and quickly felt like a good match. Fiona showed me around the place, introducing the artifacts along the way. To be honest, I wasn't paying much attention to the things she said. I was more attracted to her joyous face and those beautiful brown eyes. A few minutes later, we're given tasks by administration to receive the latest artifacts just arriving this morning. Fiona took me to the artifact collection room. In this room, there's a lot of very, very precious artifacts of huge historical value, requiring great care and handling. Fiona would run through the initial inspection while I did the note-taking for categorization. The last artifact we received was a wooden cube with strange marking on the surface. Each side measured about 1.3 feet. The object was made of wood, covered in a rather thick layer of dust. We felt kind of weird about this artifact. None of us had any information about it. On the right side, there was a rotatable metal knob. I guess it was the artifact opening mechanism, so I did turn it a bit, trying to open it. Fiona immediately voiced her concern, yet it was too late, for I had already committed. For each turn came a small click, as if you're winding up an antique music box. I was fascinated by this object, while Fiona was really spooked by this. The knobs had been turned all the way and no longer moved at all. I and Fiona attentively watched over the box. There wasn't anything happening after a few seconds. Then, suddenly, a clown jumped out from the box, followed by a sinister laughter. Startled, Fiona fell backward, which also startled me. There was a rather big clown shoved within the classic jack-in-the-box, giving out a grin, bobbing back and forth on the spring-powered mechanism. Fiona was disturbed by the laughter, in stark contrast to my fascination. The clown figure was kinda ugly, creepy dark reflection with 2 big sunken dark eyes. The clown had a wide open gape, which the sinister laughter came from. To be honest, it's kinda creepy when you see it further and further. My guess was this jack-in-the-box was an antique toy, which we quickly left aside to focus onto our work. It was the first day of work. Because I want to show off a little bit with my new colleague, I stayed all the way late into the night, until both of us were exhausted by the work after tons of documentation about all the artifacts. So I decided to invite Fiona to dinner, which she declined, for her boyfriend would come to pick her up. Oh, it was a bummer. Fiona had a boyfriend already. So she left the scene first, leaving me alone with bitter disappointment. The next day I went to work early, opening the office with the jack-in-the-box right in front of my door. Okay, who left it here? Because aside from me and Fiona last night, nobody would be here ever since, huh? Fiona arrived right after that, and when I asked her about the box, she wasn't sure either. Ever since we're out of the office yesterday, nobody would touch it then. After a quick inspection, we found that the box remained intact. We left it aside and dived into our work. Around lunchtime, I came to the archive room and unexpectedly, the box appeared there again. This time, I did a more careful observation of the object. There was some unintelligible marking on the box, as well as a number 0 on the top of it. This object really intrigued me. It must be someone really intrigued by it in the museum staffs that they left it all over the place like this. Suddenly, the knob rotating on itself, clicking over each notch. This startled me, frozen me on my track, glued my gaze into the strange artifact. Fiona then called my name from afar and snapped me out of my trance. The box suddenly stopped turning on its own, too. Fiona asked me why I was idling for such a long time. I answered back with my experience and questions about the mysterious box. She put that aside immediately, telling me about the incoming expo. We would have a lot of work to do. The mysterious box was an unnecessary distraction. I left, nonetheless, questions about the box ringing within my head. That day, we finished our work very late. Yet we're contented. We'd made good preparation for the incoming exhibition. So needless to say our frustration when we arrived to work the next day. Everything we'd prepared was now all over the place, some heavily damaged with blood running all over. In the corner was a body of a robust man, wearing dark clothes with a black-colored balaclava that was now torn heavily from his badly bruised and lacerated body. On his neck was a bite mark that was too wide and deep. The bite mark clearly wasn't of human origin. The police arrived quickly, cordoned off the crime scene, and we had no other choice but to cancel the exhibition. The museum suffered heavily due to many precious artifacts suffering irreparable damage. A quick investigation told us that the dead man was indeed a museum thief. Cause of death was announced to be heavy exsanguination, yet the evidence toward the perpetrator was nowhere to be found. The police kept every one of us round up for investigation. The days afterward were hell. None of us, me and Fiona including, could have enjoyed the atmosphere here. And the creepy things didn't stop there. Another day, our project manager also disappeared. He hadn't been around for many days now. Also, no traces of him running away were discovered. I had just been working for half a month, but many bad things had been going on here already. One late night, when I was walking across the hallway to go home, suddenly I spotted something down in the darkness. Attentively listening, I immediately recognized it to be the jack-in-the-box. I wasn't wrong. It was right there, down the hallway. I suddenly felt something wasn't right about this artifact. Carefully picked it up. I could feel the knob automatically turning. The sensation made the hair on my back puff up. Even weirder, I could see the number on it slowly turning into number 2. Suddenly, Over the dark corridor, there appeared a dark shadow, which seemed to be a man, a very tall man, dressed up in raggedly strange clothes. I stopped dead on my track in a sudden dread, before slowly regaining my composure, getting closer, and yelling out to see who that person was. A loud, crazy laughter echoed from the dark corridor, hit me like a truck, prompted me to drop the box onto the floor. The laughter was exactly like the one from the Jack in the Box. I was frozen in dead, unable to move any muscles. On the other side, as soon as Fiona called out for me, the shadow and the creepy laughter disappeared. Instead, it was her silhouette appearing on the wall. Everything happened way too fast for me to know what happened. I wasn't sure if it was real or just all my imagination. So I decided not to tell Fiona what had happened. But I told her that I was going to put the Jack in the Box aside to archive room and head home soon. When I headed for home, Fiona was there waiting for her boyfriend. The next morning, Fiona didn't go to work. I was shocked when I was told that Fiona had been admitted to the ER last night. When I came to visit, Fiona was in a deep coma with countless wounds on her body. On her neck was a similar bite mark to that dead museum thief. Her boyfriend told me when he came to pick her up, he heard a call for help and some crazy laughter in the dark. When he found her, she was already in a deep shock, blood covered all over her body. I came back to work with a lot of thoughts in my head. First thing first, I needed to test my theory, so I brought out the box, seeing the number lingering between 2 and 3. So if Fiona completely passed away from the assault, the number would completely turn to 3? I decided to turn the box's knob, prompting the creepy figure to pop out, which I looked at closely, trying to figure out what it truly was. Later this afternoon, the police discovered the body of our project manager on the rooftop of the museum complex. He died due to the combination of blood loss and similar wounds, just like Fiona and the thief. Also, at the same day, a man with a lot of wounds and healing scars came forward to meet me. He confessed to be the second thief of that night and luckily survived the attack. He wanted me to discuss a few things. I took him into my office under the escort of the police. The man could no longer exude his emotion after the badly mauled face, yet I could read the fear, the terror within his eyes. His name's Owen, and the other thief who couldn't make it was Gary. That night, they planned the heist meticulously, and Gary, upon seeing the box, put it into the trophy bag. It was almost perfect, until suddenly, the creepy laughter came together with the sound of a winding knob. Owen could clearly remember the giant of a man, dressed up in an ancient outfit of a clown, a jester, attacking both of them. He was supposed to be another victim, but he fought tooth and nail to escape death. Owen lifted up his sleeve, showing up a giant bite mark, still bloodied, and had no time to heal yet. I knew Owen came to me due to the fact that I was the only one who would believe him. As we were exchanging our words, suddenly, the jester creepy laugh echoed from the dark corner. We turned around and were greeted with the sight of the Jack in the Box. Okay, how the hell did that thing come here without any of us noticing? The terror-induced clown stood looking at us, twisted and turned its body side to side as if taunting us. Do you think that Lewis and Owen could have escaped the attack of the clown? What would happen to Fiona? Let's discuss in the comments section below.
I'm Dante, a free-spirited bachelor who is completely comfortable with a carefree, no-strings-attached lifestyle. I don't have any fixed routines. I do whatever I want, as long as it brings me joy. My life revolves around spontaneous moments, and I never regret anything. Perhaps that's why people often find me both intriguing and unpredictable. Last night, while talking to a friend on the phone, I shared my recent achievement, dating 5 different girls in just 1 week. "That's badass. What happened next?" My friend's voice was full of both surprise and excitement. I gave a faint smile, my confidence unmistakable. There was no after. I ended it all at once. My friend's response was almost in shock. "You're not joking, are you? This isn't that simple," he asked again, his voice filled with doubt. It started from happiness and willingness, but when it ended, it came from my feeling of disgust, that's all. I shrugged, let out a calm sentence, and hung up the phone. Looking at the clock, it was almost midnight. I suddenly smiled as the thought of a new hunt crept into my head. I changed into a new outfit, sat in the expensive car, and drove off. The engine roared in the quiet of the night, full of excitement. I pressed the gas pedal, reaching a speed of over 60 miles an hour. My mind exhilarated with the thought of finding a place filled with lively music, good alcohol, and free-spirited dancing. I stopped at a famous bar in the city center. The bright neon lights illuminated the colorful space, and the pounding music blared from the large speakers. I sat down at a table, ordered a bottle of bourbon, and drank it in one go. The sweet and spicy flavor spreads throughout my mouth, bringing a feeling of excitement. When I put down the bottle, my eyes stopped at a hidden corner of the shop. A girl. She looks outstanding in the crowd, beautiful, free-spirited, and mysterious. The special thing is that she is sitting alone. Her eyes seem to be looking for someone. That's the new joy I'm looking for. Without hesitation, I held the bottle of bourbon and approached her. "Let's have a drink together," I smiled, and raised a bottle of wine with confidence. She raised her head to look at me. Her dark eyes were deep and her voice was gentle but challenging. "What if I don't want to stop at just one drink?" The answer made me feel like I was falling into a rabbit hole of delightful seduction. "As long as you want," I replied, trying to keep a smile on my lips. We drank a lot, constantly changing topics from funny jokes to strange secrets in life. Before long, in front of us was a line of empty bottles of liquor and beer cans. She drank until she was completely drunk, no longer aware, while I still felt like I could control everything. I watched her lean precariously on the chair. Her smile could be seen slowly fading from her lips. Feeling responsible for my own fun, I tried to ask for her home address, but she just lowered her head onto the table, not responding. I shook my head and scoffed. I thought it would be a bit difficult. Turns out it's easier than I thought. I helped her outside and settled her into the passenger seat of my car. But with the current alcohol level, I couldn't drive at all. So I decided to sleep in the car until she sobered up the next morning. I looked at the clock and saw it was already past 3 a.m. Let's finish this quickly. A few hours later, I woke up to the daylight filtering through the car window. It's already past 9. I turned to gently shake the girl, but she still didn't respond. Her white dress was now stained a deep shade of red. "Did you mess up my car? The smell is terrible," I grumbled, but I was sure she couldn't hear a thing. I opened the trunk and pulled out a large cloth that I had prepared earlier. I carefully wrapped her in the cloth, placed her in the trunk, and drove home. When I arrived home, I opened the trunk, and she was still lying motionless, showing no sign of regaining consciousness. What was strange was that the large cloth had also turned red, just like her dress. I looked down at my hands and clothes, realizing they were covered in a sticky red substance, foul-smelling and slimy. I carried her into the house, laid her down on the sofa, made 2 cups of hot tea, and brought them over, but she still didn't stir or show any signs of waking up. Suddenly, remembering the basement, I thought maybe I would need the help of the other pleasures down there. I carefully carried the girl down to the basement, where the women I had brought home before were still waiting, lingering in the cold darkness. "Hello, beautiful ladies. Today we have a new friend joining us," I said, my voice cheerful and confident. The basement remained eerily silent, but I didn't care at all. "This girl's name is..." "Oh, I forgot to ask her name. But don't worry, we'll soon come up with a new name for her later on." I laid the girl down next to Jenna, one of my old pleasures. As I looked around, I couldn't help but notice the decay of the collection of pleasures. Lainey, the blonde woman who once shone brightly, was now just a faded figure with nearly all of her hair fallen out. Martha, one of my favorites, had now lost one eye, leaving behind an empty socket that was haunting. I turned back to look at the new girl, and a strange feeling suddenly stirred within me. Perhaps this would be the new pleasure that could help me shake off the monotony of life. I smiled and whispered, "Soon enough, we'll have a new game to play." I walked out of the basement, shutting the heavy iron door behind me, feeling a mix of satisfaction and something unsettling. I looked at the wall clock, hearing the ticking echo in the quiet space, and then I smiled, satisfied. So, my collection of pleasures had reached number 13.